Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Stephen and Oliver Show. We've got an interesting one today, and I'm interested to find out where it's come from because it's Stephen's, obviously,
Of course.
standard. And we're titling this one, There's No Friends in Business. But I'm toying with the idea of putting a question mark at the end of that one because we're going to challenge that, aren't we?
Absolutely.
So that takes me in a load of various different directions, but it was your idea as always. So, how would you say you came up with that one? What's prompted the idea about friendship in business and
Yeah.
that not being possible?
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? As we go through life and we experience different people, we go to events, we have different conversations. It kind of um, opened my mind to this question that often people will say, well, there's no friends in business. You just got professional and it's just business. And I just want to challenge that today because it's quite interesting, the word friends, and more interesting, when do we meet those friends? And what I've come to find is some of our friends that we have, they have we were introduced to maybe at, so I know some people at primary, some people are introduced to them at secondary school, some people in university, some people in their first job. But you're introduced to a friend at some point in your life. And generally, when you give someone the word friend, it travels over a period of time. So imagine a friendship that starts in your first job. So one of my friends, Jack, he was my boss in my first job, and he is still my boss today. Sorry, my friend today. So he's my boss in my first job, but he's still my friend today from all that, 38 years ago. So my point is, friendship can last, and there is friendship in business, and there are people that you can feel comfortable with and safe with. And I was at a wedding at the weekend, and it was just so interesting meeting the friends of the bride and groom who I've known for 7 years. But these other friends, they'd known for some of them for 30, some of them for 35 years. And I know how I feel about them. And it was just so refreshing to hear other friends that they've had for many, many years saying the same thing, which then made me think there are friends in business and you can have friendships in business, especially when you've met those people early on in your career. And even when you meet people later on in your career in business, you can still build a friendship. And I do think sometimes there is this grey area sometimes where it says you can't have friends in business. I've actually been sat down before when someone said, no, 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 they're not your friends, they're your colleagues or it's someone that you've worked with, they'll never be your friend. And so be careful because, um, you know, you calling them friends doesn't really work. A little bit like, I know, I'm going to use the word family. And I know some businesses will say, it's like a family. We feel like family here. And some people go, no, 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 there's no such thing as family in business. You can't use that word. I just want to challenge that. I just want to put it out there on the podcast and say, I believe that you can have friendships in business, and I think you can have friends in business. It's all about you and the way in which you come together with that person.
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting because it's funny enough, there's a few people that they're not clients of mine, but they're people that I have conversations with who both businesses were set up by friends collectively, and they're one of the friends in these businesses. And they started off very, very well, and it's kind of gone a bit fractious over many years. And you're right, because ultimately, the conversation that I was having with them, and obviously if I was in the room with all of them, would be to let's take ourselves back to why we got here in the first instance. And what tends to be, I mean, you know me, I always feel this tends to be the cause of all this stuff is a lack of communication
Mhm.
or having expectations that are unspoken, i.e., not having agreements, is what leads us to this
Mhm.
particular point. And, you know, as a business grows and it becomes more successful, it's going to have peaks and troughs, ups and downs. But if you lose sight of why you did it in the first place and why these people were the ones you wanted to go into, you know, we're talking about actual business owners here, then there is a danger, isn't there? Because you can become distracted. And you think about it in relationships, it's the same thing, isn't it? You know, if you're in a relationship and you lose sight of why you first met and why you first
Yeah.
cared about one another and other things get in the way, you can wake up a lot further down the line, a
Mhm.
million miles away from where you were
No.
when you started. And it's quite hard, or it's a lot harder to reconnect with that when you've let it slip
Yeah.
for that long. And sometimes you have to accept that some people aren't willing to also make that effort. But also, it doesn't have to be in a business owner relationship, does it? It's just
No,
at
no,
work.
absolutely.
Absolutely at work. Well, take you and I, for example. I would class us as friends. Stephen may feel differently, but we are not, in the natural on paper, natural bedfellows because we're in competitive environment, aren't we? We're both coaches in theory. I don't think anybody who would want coaching from me would want it from Stephen, and vice versa necessarily because of the personality traits, but that's probably not true. So we both offer something similar. But actually, we found that really helpful, really connecting. So, and I talk about this with a lot of my clients when they look at it, they will gravitate towards other people in their business
Yeah.
space and actually become very friendly. To what degree of a friendship? I
Yeah.
don't know. We could get into a point scoring argument, couldn't we? But
Yeah.
they really value that. I can think of two guys in Norwich who run agencies and are working very closely together, having chats all the time.
Yeah.
They arguably could be going for the same work at certain times, maybe, but it doesn't really matter. They'll actually work together on stuff.
Yeah.
They'll partner. So I think it's a mindset thing. If you tell yourself you can't have friends, well, do you know what? You won't have
Yeah.
any, will you? But actually, if you remain open to it, don't give them the crown jewels in day one. Obviously, that's probably going to be a lot more healthy for you, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, while you're talking, it just made me think about that whole thing around. I often say, in order to build relationships and partnerships, you have to put yourself in a vulnerable state.
Mm.
In order to build friendships, you have to do the same. My point is there a big difference between relationships and friendships?
Mm.
And do we make that distinction? And actually, there is no distinction, because actually, the word that then comes to my mind is friendships, partnerships. Are all based on trust, right?
Mm.
So that's the reason why someone becomes your friend, is because at some point you start to trust them, and that develops. And it might be that friendship's born out of, well, mine was with Jack. That was, here was this elder in my mind that was almost like a father figure to me, someone that just talked so much sense, and that I could implement a lot of things that we talked about. That then it grew into a friendship, where we'd play squash, we'd meet up and have a drink, get together. And as that friendship then grew, he would come to special times in my life. I'd go to special times in his life. But remember, this friendship grew out of business.
Yeah.
So I guess it's that whole thing, isn't it? Could we sometimes be too closed off to friendships in business? I even know some people that are married now that met in the business that they worked in. So I guess it's just, I suppose, what I'm trying to say is, it's almost like, have we perhaps missed out on opportunities because we've had this narrative that says, oh, no, you can't be friends with that person because it's business. And actually, I'm challenging that and saying, well, I think there are friends in business, and there'll always be friends in business. And actually, if you leave yourself open to that, who knows where it could potentially take you? Just give another example, because they're all flooding through now. So I got a message a few days ago from a very dear friend of mine called Jenna, and she's launching a new business on the 1st of May. Rain and Bean, for those of you that want to go and have a look. And Rain and Bean is a laundry brand. But what was quite interesting, we were introduced as, in the business sense, with my other dear friend called John. And now me and Jenna are friends. And I would say friends to the point where I've broken bread with her. I've been there with her children and her husband. So we are friends. But again, if I wasn't open to that and wasn't put myself in that state, then we would have never have been friends. We've just been business associates. So yeah. So, and also I think in the world where it's just so cutthroat and so dog eat dog, I think we all need more friends in the business world. And if there was much more friendship, friendship directly then leads into perhaps more collaboration, less threat. Because let's be honest, a lot of the reason why sometimes maybe the friendships don't get developed is because we've seen them as a threat. You could have seen me as a threat, and I could have seen you as a threat. Where me and you both have the same opinion, that actually more people in this space is a good thing, not a bad thing, because we're helping people. And the more of us that are in this space doing it in the right way, then that's positive.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because that's the thing, isn't it? You know, that take our space. My reason that I connected so well with Stephen is because I finally met somebody in my space that I had a lot of respect for, and I hadn't come across too many of those examples. And it was reassuring. And then we found that we had synergies in the way that we looked at things. We approached them potentially differently, but our core values were very similar. Our outcomes that we wanted for our clients were very similar. And just like, oh, this is sensible. And we were just having chats, weren't we? I bored everybody on the podcast multiple times about how this podcast came to be, but it just made sense, didn't it? We didn't force it, but also we weren't closed to it because both of us on the first day we met could have easily said, "Oh, sod this," and just not paid it and like, yeah, I'll call you, yeah, whatever, that sort of thing. But I can think of one client I've got now who is just naturally good at building relationships and so forth and just gets how it works. But wow, is it paying dividends now? Because he's starting to put some asks in around what he does, and the work we're doing has led to him needing to do that. And the doors are open. They're not just a crack open either, not just a jar. They are wide open. Yes, buddy, come in, have a chat. How can I help you? You've given me this and you've done that. Because he goes out there with nothing on it. You know, when he helps people, he genuinely likes to see them do well. And he gets a kick out of it, I guess. But there's no reason why you can't form to be that way as well. Yes, all right, maybe it doesn't come quite as naturally to you as it does to this individual, but it's certainly that pay it forward thing. I've always believed in this. You know, every year I always have not a handful, maybe two clients probably that I don't charge because I know where they're at in their life, they wouldn't be able to work with me, but they will benefit from it. But more importantly, so will I because of how much potential they have. They're always normally younger and protégés, for want of a better word, I suppose. And you know that they will go out into the world in a better place for my help anyway. But also, the likelihood is they will be grateful, and for that gratitude and that great relationship that we have, friendship in some cases, they'll want to pay it back. But there's no written rule, there's no written agreement. It's just about, yeah, it's human nature, isn't it? So absolutely, and it's interesting really because I've the business I run is having to change the model slightly. Bluntly, I'm looking to grow it a lot more than I have been. Quite happily plodding along at a certain level for a few years. I now need that to change. So what am I doing? I'm reconnecting with people that I had probably let connections and relationships with slip. Both of us probably just equally responsible, but I have a driver now to reconnect. And you know, it's really satisfying reconnecting with these people, and it gives you a big slap in the face as to why did I lose touch? And I know what it is, laziness. I can't pretend it's anything other than that. It was laziness. It would have involved effort. Time went beyond. You almost not forget them, but it's close to forgetting about it. But then you're faced with a need to change the dynamics. You're the one who drives it, and it's amazing how quickly you get back into that connection. So yeah, for me, there's huge amounts of friendship in business. I mean, as a final point on that, my wife and I met through work. So, and we've been married for 9 years and together for 13, 14. God, I hope she's not listening. Around about 14 years. And that was all through work. We'd never have met if we hadn't, chatted at work. And it sort of blossomed from there. And I'm sure we're not the only people in the world who've ever done that. So to think that there's no friendship in business is insane. And if you are telling yourself that is the case, as I kick over Steve's microphone, if you're not watching on video, that's what the noise was. If you're telling yourself otherwise, you are lying to yourself. And why? That's the thing we would say. Why are you telling yourself there's no friendships in business? That would be the really interesting question.
Yeah, and like, as a final point, I think it does come down to that trust, but also it comes down to you opening yourself up to it and being open-minded enough to go there. So I would say don't miss the opportunity to grow friends in business, because those friends might be with you for the rest of your life. I know absolutely Jack will always be there. And even when I think about my good friend Sam, we met. I was working for Saxon Shoes and he was working for Leon Allen, and we met through business. And he's one of my dearest friends. We met when we were 16. And it's just crazy that for people to make that statement, oh, there's no friends in business, which I hear a lot.
Yeah,
I hear it a lot.
One of the things I'm really interested in, because you've talked about it on another podcast, but if they haven't listened to it, then it would be good to just come in here about as well your view on trusting people first.
Yes.
And not your hatred of the phrase.
Yeah.
You've got to
earn it. Earn my trust or build my trust.
Just expand on that a little bit, because as someone there in business, you might think, well, I don't want to trust a competitor, for example.
Yeah. And I've always had this mindset from entering business in 1986, where the thing that was said to me was, "You'll have to earn my trust, young man. You'll have to earn it." And I remember going home that week and thinking about what was said to me that I had to earn the trust. And then I thought to myself, I disagree. And I disagree with this point. If someone's continuously got to earn your trust in the beginning, you'll never trust them because you're constantly having to earn it. And that word itself feels to me like a period of time has to pass. And I go, "You're right, mate. You've now earned my trust." I like to think that you give someone 100% trust at the beginning, and then they have to keep it. They have to keep that trust that you've given them. And I just think it's a much cleaner, open-minded, fresher, emotionally intelligent way of looking at it, where you say to someone, you have it. Now hold on it. Just the same way I say to someone, "You've told me that you're a graphic designer. So in my mind, you're the best graphic designer in the world. It's now up to you to keep that. So I've given you 10 out of 10. You've got it. You haven't got to earn the 10 out of 10 I'm giving it you. Now hold on to it." And I just think it's more powerful.
Well, it's like when I talk about micromanagement issues that we maybe have when we're working more with companies, and the unwillingness to delegate, which ultimately comes down to is an element of control, but it's ultimately a lack of trust in the people around you. And I obviously talk to these companies and organisations and the people involved in it, and say, "Well, why are you spending the money then on these people?" Now, what I will say, I would caveat it by saying, if you have some trust issues, a bit like I alluded to earlier, maybe don't offer everything. I accept your point of view, and I think in an ideal world that's the right way to be. But if you've already put some doubt in your mind, to suddenly go all out and trust everybody at that point might be a challenge for people. So it's then a case of baby steps, giving them something. So it's not about earning it, the extreme end of it, but ultimately what they can do is they can show you they can be trusted, and then you can go to that level. So I think earning your trust is one thing. If you've already got trust issues installed, I think going to the other end degree and now fully trusting everybody to do everything might be a stretch. I think if you can do that, you'll have better results. But some sort of happy medium is necessary. And in new relationships, why I asked you to bring it up is that's how you should approach all new relationships. I get existing relationships that might be difficult. And whilst I think Stephen would be shaking you around the shoulders and slapping you around the face and getting you to his way of thinking, I can understand why it might be a struggle, but there's no excuse for it in new relationships, is there?
No, because basically you're closing part of yourself off immediately. So that whole collaborativeness means you have to give all and just go with it. And I wonder how many things fell because you haven't entered it. You haven't entered into it with that understanding. You're looking at them going, "Well, I want to see what you're like.
What's in it for me?"
Yeah, where I just think having that openness and I think it allows our heads to be less cloudy and us to be more open, more fresh, rather than us. You're already putting in an objective in before you even started, in my opinion. So,
and it's interesting as well because I can't back this up. There might be some science behind it, but I'm pretty confident that people can read you as well. I think even if it's not absolutely clear, I think people know what you're up to. And I can think of somebody that we know of who has tapped into a particular environment, shall we say, and they've got an agenda. They've got an agenda in that environment, and it's not working because the agenda is clear. Now, it's not spoken. It was sort of alluded to in early days privately to us. But you kind of, when you know that, you're just like, I'm not sure that's cool, mate. And then when you see it, it's like, that's not really working out for you, is it? Well, that's because it's over in your aura or in your tone or in your
absolutely
your maybe the fakeness or something like that. So it's got to be genuine as well. You can say you trust people or you can say you're doing something, but if you're not actually following it through, honestly, I know that people are reading it. They may not read it perfectly every time. They may not read it right, but you will be giving off a vibe. So you, in my opinion, and it is only an opinion, you cannot fake this stuff. But I think it's really, really useful because I think a lot of people could completely flip the way they live their lives,
absolutely
the success they have, by changing that one thing
Mhm.
and looking at having friendships in work and trusting people more. I don't think we're saying here go make friends with everybody you bloody meet, but just be open to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I
Don't be
do,
resistant.
yeah. And from a mindset perspective, I think it helps your mindset. It helps that positivity. It helps you be more fluid. Helps you be more flexible. You know, helps you be more open-minded.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, I think that's been really, really useful one. So thank you for bringing that one up, because it wasn't one I would have ever picked before, but I can now see at the end of the episode that was really, 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 really good. So have you got any final thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, don't close yourself off. Friendships help the world go round. And if you think about some of the most amazing friendships in the world, past or present, they've all been about that trust, and through that friendship, they've been the best version of themselves.
Awesome. Perfect. Good way to finish. And we will end the episode there, and therefore look forward to seeing you or speaking to you on the next one.